Welcome to Red Hat Developer Corner. My name is Mike Hepburn. I'm a Principal Architect with Red Hat Open Innovation Labs, and today I'm going to talk to you about a book we've written here at Red Hat called DevOps, Culture and Practice with OpenShift. Now the book really contains lessons we've learned throughout the past 5 years working with customers, helping them innovate and deliver continuous business value through people, process and technology. The co-authors of the book include myself, Tim, Noel, Donal, illustrated by Ilaria, and they're all friends and colleagues who work with me at Red Hat in Open Innovation Labs. Now the thing about the book, it's probably about a third technical, a third people and culture, and a third process oriented. So it's, whilst there are bits of the book that are heavily technical, a lot of it is about people, culture and practice. And in the book, we explore the mindsets, principles, and practices that really drive real business outcomes. And hopefully it provides you with the direction and the ideas that you need to get started. It's really a go-to reference that helps you get up and running fast with your transformation. And in it, we share real-world stories and mistakes and pitfalls that we've sort of come across in our last sort of 5 years of consulting. And today I'm going to talk about some of the overarching principles and practices that we use to deliver successful business outcomes with OpenShift with our customers. Okay, so does this look familiar? I live in Australia, and here in Australia it's really hard to buy essentials like toilet rolls. So let me ask a question. What does COVID-19 supply chain chaos have in common with DevOps? And in reality, I think if you think about like how these supply chains work, they're a lot more human than we realize. People are involved in the production and shipping and delivery of goods and services into stores, and even down to the stocking of shelves. So when the workforce is staying at home due to COVID lockdowns, either because they're close contacts or indeed they've caught COVID-19, then disruption happens. So really it's people who are the driving force behind production, distribution and supply. And so what's the commonality? Of course it's people. And really DevOps, if we think about it, is a collaboration activity that happens between people and teams. The other thing about DevOps is it's a verb, not a noun. As much as people would like to sell you a DevOps product and give you a title that has DevOps in it, really DevOps is a verb. It's a doing thing. It's something that emerges from this blend of interaction between people, process, and technology. And it's worth saying that you need all of these elements to be successful. So having a fantastic technology stack and platform and tools will not get you there alone. You need the people and the processes to be able to help you transform the way that you work. So DevOps is about collaboration, and to be successful at DevOps you have to build empowered teams within your organization. So where do we start? A simple analogy we use in the book is it's a lot like building a house. To transform your team and their culture, you've got to start by building solid and strong foundational practices, and then you can incrementally build upon these to successfully build your house. And if your house foundations are weak, your house is not going to stand up for very long. We split our foundational practices into two sort of subcategories, both cultural and technical. So for example, having a shared team charter is a practice we call social contracting, and it's one of those cultural practices that we use to get agreement and alignment in newly formed teams. An example of a technical practice might be everything as code, where all of our infrastructure and application code, including the configuration, is stored in Git. So I don't know if you've seen this before, but basically the watermelon effect comes about when the status of a project is being reported, usually using traffic lights like green and red and amber. And the watermelon effect happens when things look great on the outside, but once you start peeling back the layers, it's actually all red on the inside. So your piece of work and your project is being reported as all good up the food chain, but actually it's not. And this commonly happens when teams operate in secret or safety mode. So they're sort of afraid of sharing what's really going on within their team, in case they're forced to do more work over weekends, or they've been told that what they've done isn't right. And really, if this is happening to you, what's missing is often an open and honest and transparent view of the work that's going on as it proceeds. So in Dan Pink's book, Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us, we find that people are not motivated in the ways that we expect. So it's common that organisations create a culture of incentives, either through money or rewards, for good performance. And then they have punishments for when people are not performing well. And what Dan Pink's book tells us is that research shows that these are not the things necessarily that motivate people. So the things in knowledge work especially, the things that motivate people are autonomy, which is the desire to be self-directed and the freedom to take ownership. Mastery, which is the desire to get better at something. And purpose, so the feeling that what you're doing has meaning or is important to you. And it's these three things, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, that motivate knowledge workers. And to set this type of ethos within your organization, the leadership needs to be able to set an environment to help people achieve these things. So how do we do that? It's about empowering teams to make decisions so that they can self-correct and self-organize as they go. And this provides, a wide degree of autonomy. It's also about removing the obstacles and the silos between teams that prevents people from actually appreciating what the business purpose is for the efforts that they're doing. For example, enabling developers to have direct access to customers and business stakeholders really drives a sense of purpose in their work. So teams will have the freedom to sort of create, great products, and they'll have the responsibility to stay connected to end customers. And if you do this, then they will. So one of the best ways to encourage an open culture is by having information openly available to everybody within the team and really any interested stakeholders. So Alistair Cockburn of Agile Manifesto fame coined the term information radiators, and really it's anything that's placed in a highly visible location so that the latest version of that bit of information can be seen at a glance by anyone who's walking by. And the benefits of doing this are huge. So no longer are important bits of information hidden in applications on your desktop where only sort of you or a couple of people know where it's located. So if you put it on the walls, then conversations and discussions can happen at the board. And really it's not uncommon for stakeholders to wander past and start to talk to you and your team about what they see. And in this picture we have multiple practices on display. So on the boards on the left at the bottom we've got an event storm, and that's a practice that we use to help design business processes in a microservices based application architecture. Above that on the brown paper we have a practice called value slicing, and that's a clustering and prioritization practice that helps us know, helps the team know what to work on first. And to the right you can see a Kanban board, a product backlog, which is showing tasks that are waiting to be done. So here's another example of a team clustered around a screen talking about a technical diagram. So like even if your information is digital and stored online, it's up to us to make sure that that doesn't become refrigerated, that we keep it relevant and we talk about it. So establishing this foundation of visualization and openness, it's really about collaborating with teammates, and showing and not telling. And of course, in the last couple of years, work has become a lot more virtual. It's gone online, and we can no longer get together so much and put sticky notes on walls in physical reality. So we have tools like Miro, and this is an online collaboration tool which helps us keep information visible and available online. So one of the other cross-cutting concerns of many of the practices in the book is about being able to get alignment and shared understanding across the team. So product teams are, they're made up from cross-functional roles. They include, lots of technical specialists as well as business people and subject matter experts. So technical people might be developers, infrastructure operations, security, architecture. And, by organizing into cross-functional teams, it's amazing what happens when you expose sort of the business people to IT and vice versa. This shared empathy and understanding starts to happen, certainly around like the domain complexity that they've never been exposed to. So business people, for example, come to understand that the delivery pipeline and continuous integration and continuous deployment is worth spending a lot of time on, because if we want to build and deploy quality applications that don't fail in production, then we have to put a fair bit of time into building that quality in. So you can see in this picture, there's a real-time discussion and collaboration going on. This is actually an event storm, and it's made up of technical people and business people. They collaborate together on this visual map, and what's going on is they're actually trying to map out a business process so that everyone can understand what it means. And I think importantly, this practice, the language that we use is business or customer centric. It's not so much technical, so that everyone can understand like the steps that make it up. And if you are used to very detailed business functional requirements spec documents, this visual mapping process can really replace hundreds of pages of these types of documents. Karen, who is a product owner I worked with once said to me that she'll never again, go and write 300 pages of specification documentation that no one's going to read. She's always going to start with this event storm. And really it's because it fosters this alignment and shared understanding across the team. So here's another example of a practice that helps team really gain that shared understanding. And this is a practice called mobbing. And in the picture you can see teams mobbing together around a single keyboard and a screen, really describing and showing the thing or the problem that they're doing and the steps at hand. And actually this picture is taken during a DevOps training course that we run. And we like to use mobbing heavily for learning, particularly because it's a pretty collaborative sport. Another practice that helps gain alignment and shared understanding is the big picture. And in the big picture, it's really a board that visualizes all the tools and steps that we use to build our CI/CD environment. And we visualize all of the different environments where our applications are deployed. There could be namespaces in an OpenShift cluster, could be different clusters across different clouds. And really, to be able to build and deliver continuously, everyone needs to have a good understanding of which tools are in use and what they're used for. And we build our quality gates into this pipeline as we go. So over time, the application quality improves as we deliver them. Really, if you think about it, if there's a failure in production, it's probably because we're missing some steps, usually some testing steps or automation in our pipelines. So we continually come back to our big picture and add in these steps to improve quality over time. So we're a big fan of everything as code, and automation is really the low-hanging fruit of DevOps in a lot of ways. So by getting rid of any manual and repeated tasks through automation, we free up people really to do better things. And in industry, especially in SRE groups, this is often called toil, so reducing toil. So to be able to automate things, the first and most important thing you need to do is store everything as code. So that is, it's got to be checked in, it's got to be version controlled, it's got to be stored in a source control repository, which is pretty much Git these days. And we like to say if it's not in Git, it's not real. And this includes all of your configuration for building, testing, deploying, not only your infrastructure, your cloud, your applications, your CI/CD stack, and all your third-party integrations as well. So it needs to be all in Git, and if you can get to that point, that starting point, then you're in a good place. So configuration that's manually applied is really considered temporary, and it can be automatically reverted to whatever the source of truth is, which is in Git. So what this does is it leads to repeatable, anti-fragile environments. They're not all configured differently, which of course leads to a lot better quality in your applications and business services, which ultimately leads to happier customers who use them. So, in software, there's sort of two competing forces at work. We have sort of innovation, which is inherently accompanied by system change. It's sort of what developers do when they're writing code. And then we have running software, really, and this is serving end customers, and really it implies stability. And those two things are two important areas to focus on when we're trying to measure and learn. And so we want to help measure the effectiveness of teams as they develop and deliver software and the practices that they use. But we also want to start to measure and monitor the activities that allow us to sort of diagnose when our applications and services have issues that can lead to instability. And so we've got a term called metrics-driven transformation, and really that focuses on these value-based metrics that help us understand how to measure these outcomes, where and when should we take these measurements and learn, and where should we really start to inspect things. In Lean, this is often sort of termed sort of build it, measure it, learn from it. And in software engineering, we really want to make bets and experiments and understand, when they work and when they don't work, and to try and work out how to prioritize and work on these things. It can often be quite a daunting task. So we've got a lot of practices that we use not only to create a backlog. Good ones, for example, are impact mapping and user story mapping, and then we can use these and group and prioritize the bits of work. And often what can end up happening in teams is that the loudest person in the room is listened to the most, or the most senior person is sort of given the most airtime for discussions. Sort of this hippo effect where the highest paid person's opinions are always sort of listened to. It could also be called sort of the loudest voice dominates. And really what it does is it leads to sort of a one-sided view being portrayed where sort of the quieter or more reserved people in the group don't get heard at all. And so we've got quite a few practices that help that we discuss in the book. Simple practices like sort of 1, 2, 4 all, where we sort of start out with a single person, then in pairs, then in groups of 4, and then the whole group, really to help facilitate and set up so that these different types of personas can be heard. And all the way out to there's sort of more complex practices, sort of the weighted shortest job first practice, which is from SAFe, is really an attempt at measuring the cost of delay so that we can set up tasks and features in the right order for working on them. So different examples for measuring and learning at deployment time. The platform can be hugely helpful to support many sort of advanced deployment techniques. So in OpenShift, for example, we can support auto scaling, where we horizontally scale out different components based on some metrics. Blue-green deployments, where we can sort of release and validate and switch application versions very easily. Another example is A/B testing. This is where we design an experiment, deploy different versions of our applications, and really measure the results over time, so we can see the output of of that experiment. Canary testing, where we have different or multiple versions of our applications deployed, at the same time, and really we test out the newest version against real users before we roll it out to everybody. And we can use feature flags in our code as well to help modify system behaviors without having to redeploy our apps. So all of these things are supported by the platform, and one of the important aspects of these techniques is it helps us, fail safely, minimizing impact on end users, but also providing, quick and easy ways to help evolve our products by, running experiments. And really this is fostering that safe environment where teams can feel enabled and empowered and autonomous to be able to deliver on these outcomes with sort of building, measuring and learning. So we map all of our practices onto a continuous loop. It's called the Mobius loop. And we've actually modified the Mobius loop with the foundation, sort of that line at the bottom. The loop's important, it's continuous, and really the loop speaks to the adoption of a product mindset, where we have long-lived teams that work together and deliver long-lived products within an organization. And often we see teams being brought together, for individual projects, for example, and then they're torn apart at the end of that project. But really, to build high-performing teams, it can really help if you can adopt a more long-lived product mindset where teams can stay together and deliver higher value. At Red Hat Open Innovation Labs, we're a service organization, and we strongly have adopted this product mindset ourselves. So the book is really documenting one of the our important products, which is the way that we use all of these practices to grow that product mentality for our business. So in the book we cover 50 odd practices, I think, and these can be mapped on top of the loop. Some of them are cultural and technical foundation practices, and really when we start working with customers, it's those that we would start with. There's discovery practices, and they help us understand our end customers and the business goals. And we will use these to drive sort of technical delivery, and the technical delivery practices are pretty much based on Lean and Scrum. And importantly, in the middle we have options or pivot practices that help us measure and learn, and they help us decide when more discovery is required before we can sort of start writing more code. Another way of visualizing the practices output is this product canvas, and really it's a mapping of the sections to give context for all the work in progress from discovery all the way through to delivery. And this product canvas, it's actually an example from the book, and it's based on sort of the pet battle example application. And if you think about it, we can treat all of the layers that make up our business services and applications, as sort of double Mobius loops. When teams find practices and technologies that work for them, these can be shared back into the platform layer so that other teams can make use of them. And as teams and products scale, the platform itself helps immensely. It really allows teams to share resources and become a lot more efficient at sharing those shared resources in a sort of controlled manner. And what this does is it helps drive this common foundation of practices, which empowers more product teams, and you really start to get an economy of scale. So recently we've also been pretty heavily inspired by Matthew Skelton and Manuel Pay's book called Team Topologies, and they introduce different teams with different responsibilities. So they have an enabling team, and the enabling team trains and coaches and guides teams to learn new skills and acquire new practices. It's pretty similar to what we do at Red Hat Open Innovation Labs during residencies. And then we have stream and align teams, and really a stream aligned product team. They're aligned to a single product or value stream, and this is sort of the what we understand as the application team. And then we have the platform team, who enable strong stream aligned teams to deliver work with substantial autonomy. And we see the platform team as a product in its own right. So in many ways, the platform team is like a stream aligned team as well, but with developers and application teams as their customers. So all of the visuals, the stories, the guides, and are from our book. So the book itself is available at Amazon and Pact, but Red Hat, we've also made it entirely free, and you can download it in 7 sort of ebooks. The book itself is quite long; it's about 800 pages, so we thought we'd split it up into the different sections, different chapters, makes it a bit more easier to consume. Thank you for listening to me, and I think we're going to dive into some questions and answers now.